Game of Thrones Season 6 Episode 5 is out, and it is huge, so let's begin. At Molestown, a little village just south of the Wall, Sansa confronts Littlefinger for having given her to Ramsay. Littlefinger says he's sorry, he didn't know Ramsay was so cruel, and apparently he's telling the truth, he really didn't know, which is a pretty major fuck-up, right? He gave Sansa, one of his most valuable strategic assets and someone he loves in his own creepy way, to a family that's famous for flaying and betraying Starks, somehow not suspecting that they'd hurt her. Littlefinger is usually a master manipulator, but with Ramsay he made a mistake and he admits it. He presents himself to Sansa unprotected, at her mercy, to apologize. So as much as Littlefinger is using Sansa for his own political goals, he also seems to sincerely want Sansa to forgive him. He's a complicated character. Like, this meeting happens at Molestown, right? Which is interesting because Molestown has the brothel where the men of the Night's Watch come. At least until the wildlings sack the town in Season 4, but it's in the ruins of that brothel that Littlefinger chooses to meet Sansa, just as he meets Cat in a brothel and Olenna in a brothel. Prostitution is a big theme in Littlefinger's story. In fact, the whole situation of Peter giving Sansa to Ramsay kind of is an act of pimpery, right? So much of Littlefinger's character is rooted in his sexual history with Lysa and Catelyn, which is tied up with his feelings of self-worth and power and status. He says, "I'm not going to fight them, I'm going to fuck them. That is what I know, that is what I am." In Littlefinger's mind, sex is deeply linked to power and control, so it's no coincidence that prostitution and pimpery are recurring themes in his story. Anyway, Littlefinger offers Sansa the support of his knights from the Vale, but she refuses him. She's probably right not to trust him, but at the same time, she and Jon and co really do need more men right now. Those knights will probably end up at the Battle of Winterfell anyway, because you don't bring an army to the north and not use it. Also, Littlefinger says the Tullys, led by Brynden Blackfish Tully, have retaken Riverrun, and may be able to support Sansa in the north, which would be a huge help. But on his way out, Littlefinger calls Jon Sansa's half-brother, not brother, which seems to make Sansa doubt if she can trust Jon. In Braavos, Arya trains with the Waif because hitting people with sticks is clearly the path to becoming a great assassin. Then Jaqen turns up and tells Arya the story of how the Faceless Men began. This was hundreds of years ago in Valyria, the empire of the original Dragon Lords, who ruled most of the known world through the power of their dragons and their slaves. In the books, we're told that the slaves would mine for gold beneath volcanic mountains called the 14 Flames, and that the mines were so hot and the work so hard that slaves would pray for an end to their pain. So the first Faceless Man was someone who killed the slaves who suffered the most. Arya says he should have killed the slave masters, not the slaves, and she's told that he would bring the gift to them as well. Some fans believe this means that the Faceless Men caused the doom of Valyria, the massive fiery catastrophe that suddenly destroyed the Empire 200 years ago. If it's true that the Faceless Men were behind the downfall of the original Dragon Lords, they might not be a big fan of Daenerys, this new Valyrian queen conquering cities with her dragons. Maybe the Faceless Men will try to kill Daenerys. Arya's told to kill an actress, so she goes to see a play. The play is a retelling of recent events in King's Landing, the death of King Robert, the downfall of Ned, the marriage of Sansa to Tyrion. It's cool to see how the public perception of what happened is so wrong. Like, Ned's portrayed as an idiot who wanted the throne when he was actually the opposite. Tyrion plots with, then betrays Ned when that was actually Littlefinger. Cersei tries to follow the rules when she actually broke them. Joffrey's a noble prince instead of a nasty little shit, and he's kind to Sansa when he actually threatened and beat her. And Tyrion wants to marry and sleep with Sansa when in truth he wanted neither. But the real drama of this scene is that Arya has to relive the horrors that happened to her family. She's forced to watch her father's execution for the second time. Maybe the Faceless Men are testing her here by confronting her with memories of her family. Because to become no one, she'd have to let go of the people she loves. Afterwards, Arya spies on Lady Crane, the woman she's meant to murder, and she seems nice. So back at the house, Arya talks as though she doesn't want to kill Crane. Jaqen says she's not meant to care if she's nice, she's not meant to ask questions, she's meant to blindly serve the many-faced god, the god of death. So again, Arya's being tested. Will she give up her sense of justice and murder an innocent woman? Jaqen says she's on her last chance, it's make or break time, and hints from the books and shows suggest she's gonna leave the Faceless Men, and it's gonna be bloody. Then beyond the wall, Bran has a vision of the children of the forest creating the White Walkers. This would have happened some 10,000 years ago, when humans first came to Westeros and started a war with the children who had been there long before. Eventually, the children and the first men made peace in an agreement called the Pact, but this scene seems to suggest that sometime before the Pact, the children created White Walkers as a weapon for their war against the humans. At some point, the children must have lost control of the Walkers because thousands of years later, the Long Night happened when White Walkers attacked and almost took over Westeros. They were stopped by the humans and the children working together to fight and win the War for the Dawn. After the war, the wall was built to keep the Walkers out, though they didn't make the Walkers pay for the wall. This was all thousands and thousands of years before the story of the series begins, so the history is pretty hazy here, but we do finally know what Walkers are. They're like Frankenstein's monster, an experiment that got loose, or like the robots in Terminator, weapons that turned on their creators. We don't know how the Walkers got out of the children's control, but maybe the problem was that they learned how to make more of themselves by converting human babies. It's a problem when your killing machines can self-replicate, right? Or maybe the problem was the Whites, the zombies that Walkers raised from the dead. Because the thing is, we saw that dragonglass was used in the creation of the Walkers. Dragonglass kills Walkers, and the children had lots of dragonglass, so maybe they figured they could easily control the Walkers that way. But the Whites, these zombies, aren't hurt by dragonglass. The children can't easily stop them, so maybe the Walkers went rogue when they started raising armies of the dead. Also, this first White Walker appears to be the Night King, the Walker who now leads the army of the dead, which means the Night King must be like 10,000 years old. So are the Walkers immortal? That might explain why there have been thousands of years in between their attacks. They can afford to be patient. Also, this child of the forest is Leaf, the same child who's alive in the present, so maybe the children are also immortal? It's weird though, because in the books Leaf says she's only 200 years old. Regardless, another thing is the pattern of stones around the tree where the Walkers are made is similar to the pattern of corpses the Walkers leave in Season 3, so it looks like the Walkers mimic the symbols used by their creators, except the Walkers make them out of corpses. It really does seem that the Walkers are purely evil, a weapon gone rogue that needs to be wiped out. But is it really that simple? We know, at least in the books, that they have language and culture. Maybe they have a society, cities or civilization in the far north. They do a lot of killing, but they're still thinking, feeling creatures. Look at the Unsullied. They are slaves raised as soldiers, bred for war. But the character of Grey Worm shows us that even people who are created to be mindless killers can come to love and live like anyone else. It is true that every Walker we've seen so far has been a merciless murderer, but we can't assume that every Walker's like that. That's racist. Admittedly, it doesn't look likely that the Walkers will be more than just monsters, at least in the show, but maybe let's just think about the possibility of peace. Finally, readers may wonder whether this revelation about the Walkers is true for the books as well as the show, because the Walkers, or others, are very different in the books. But as Reddit user Lucifer Lightbringer points out, there are strong hints in the books that the children made the Walkers. For example, one character compares a Walker to some child's Snow Knight, which is exactly what the Walkers are, if they're warriors for the children. So yeah, it's not certain, but it does seem likely that this stuff is true for the books as well as the show. At the Iron Islands, the Ironborn hold a Kingsmoot to elect their new king. Yara talks about making the Iron Islands great again, building the largest fleet the world's ever seen, and when a man questions her for being a woman, Theon speaks up in her support. So everyone seems on side until Euron arrives. He makes fun of Yara and Theon, boldly admits to killing his brother, King Balon, and says he'll sail to Daenerys and ally with her to take Westeros. And the people are convinced. They make Euron their new king. This scene is better in the books. For starters, Euron has more personality. He's this charismatic, swaggering, crazy, scary pirate dude, like some darkest timeline version of Captain Jack Sparrow. He rocks up with his entourage of bastards and mutes and mongrels from all over the world. He gives out chests of gold to the Ironborn to show how awesome he is, and he has a magic horn called Dragonbinder, said to be able to control dragons. He's got power, he's got loot, and he's got a clear plan, and that's why the Ironborn choose him. Yara, or Asher, is also different in the books. She's got this great funny speech using chests of pine cones and turnips and stuff. She argues for peace instead of this vague making our mark stuff. So the show's version's okay, but the book version is much cooler. Anyway, Aeron Greyjoy, a priest of the drowned god, performs a drowning ritual on Euron. and Euron finds out that Theon and Asher have run off with their best ships, so Euron says he'll hunt them down and orders the Ironborn to build 1,000 ships, as though that's something you can do in a short time. So it looks like the Ironborn are racing to reach Daenerys to forge a great alliance between the Kraken and the Dragon. So let all the world beware. In Vaes Dothrak, Daenerys and Jorah have a tearful reunion. Jorah shows Dany his grayscale, the stony disease that's slowly killing him, and she sends him off to find a cure. In the books, there's no mention of a cure. You can sometimes survive the disease as a child, like Shireen did, but there's no, magic potion that'll fix it that we know of. In the show, though, there is a scene where Stannis says Shireen's grayscale didn't just go away naturally, he had it cured by a bunch of maesters and healers. So maybe Jorah can do something like that. Another idea that's popular at the moment is that Jorah might do what the character Victarion does in the books. He has his wounded arm healed by a red priest, leaving it all bloody and burned and smoking. Maybe Jorah will do something similar. Anyway, while Jorah the Explorer looks for a cure, Dany rides for Meereen with her massive Khalasar. In Meereen, Varys says the peace deal with the Masters seems to be working, but Tyrion still reckons they have a bit of a PR problem, so they go and have a chat with Kinvara, the High Red Priest of Volantis. Kinvara agrees to go spread the word in support of Daenerys because she believes that Dany's Azor Ahai, or the prince that was promised, the prophesied saviour of the world. As Varys points out, Melisandre said the same thing about Stannis, and now Jon, so the Red Priests really can't seem to decide who their chosen one is. But Kinvara hits right back at Varys, talking about his castration by a sorcerer when he was a child. Varys' cock and balls were burned in some magic flame, and he remembers hearing words coming from the fire. Kinvara claims to know what those words were and who they were spoken by, and Varys, perhaps understandably, is really shaken. Varys is normally so cool and collected, a master of disguising his true feelings, but here we see him openly uncertain and vulnerable, just like how we saw Littlefinger vulnerable and exposed. Power structures really are shifting this season. Anyway, it does seem good for Dany's cause that Kinvara is on side, though Tyrion is concerned that she's so keen to burn heretics and stuff. This could be a problem, especially given that Daenerys is also in a pretty burny mood lately, right? When they meet, the Dragon Queen and the Red Priestess might get along like a house on fire. Maybe Dany will convert to Kinvara's red god, feeding her flame further, turning her closer to violence and blood. Back beyond the wall, Bran goes off and has a vision without Bloodraven's guidance, going back to the spot where he saw the White Walkers made, but much later. He sees the army of the dead, and sees the White Walkers who lead them, including the Night King himself, who somehow touches Bran through the vision, leaving him marked, which breaks the magical protections on Bloodraven's cave and leaves them all vulnerable to the Walkers. Bran's training under Bloodraven's got to finish up real quick now, so he plugs into the Matrix and starts downloading as much as he can before they have to leave. Back at Castle Black, Jon and Sansa and co strategize, trying to work out which northern houses might support them. The Boltons already have the Umbers and the Karstarks, but they could still win the Manderleys, Glovers, Mormonts, Kerwins, Hornwoods, Tallhearts, and many other minor houses. If they can get all these houses together, they could stand a chance against the Boltons. Sansa also brings up the Tullys, who could be a huge help, but she lies to hide her meeting with Littlefinger and his offer of the Knights from the Vale. It seems like Sansa doesn't totally trust Jon, or maybe she only lies to keep Littlefinger out of all of this. Either way, she does give Jon a fancy new coat, so it seems like things can't be too bad between them. So everyone heads off to recruit allies, leaving Ed in charge at Castle Black. Jon jokes about the wall falling, which is some seriously scary foreshadowing. Then back beyond the wall, Meera and Hodor get packing while Bran and Bloodraven keep green dreaming, but knock knock, the Walkers are here. The children try to defend the cave with fire grenades, but the Walkers and Whites get in. Meera kills a Walker, Summer is killed by Whites, Bloodraven's killed by the Night King, Leaf sacrifices herself, and Hodor has a psychic warging time travel seizure vision of his own future death from the past while he sacrifices himself, saving Bran and Meera by holding the door. And holy fuck if that's not the biggest and bloodiest 10 minutes in Game of Thrones since the Red Wedding. Let's process this. So, Meera kills that White Walker with a spear with a head made of dragon glass, making her the third person known to kill a White Walker, along with Sam and Jon. The death of Summer is so sad. With Lady Greywind and Shaggy Dog all dead, Ghost is the last known surviving direwolf. Though there is also Nymeria, who Arya let loose in the Riverlands in Season 1. There are strong hints in the books that she's still out there, leading a giant wolf pack, so we may see her again. but that's just 2 of the original 6 Stark direwolves left. The death of Bloodraven is huge, because he's one of the oldest, most powerful and knowledgeable and mysterious characters in the series, yet we never really found out his secrets before he died. In the books we know he's a 100-year-old Targaryen bastard and brother of the Watch, but beyond that, we really know nothing. Who is he? How did he come to be a psychic tree? What does he know? What are his goals? What exactly was his plan for Bran? And what's his history with the Walkers? The way the Night King looked at him, it looks like they got years-old beef. And Leaf, it is poetic that she was killed by the monsters she created, but was she the last of her species? As far as we know, the children in that cave were the last of the children of the forest. And finally, Hodor. Poor, sweet, innocent Hodor. We learn that Hodor is the way that he is because in a vision of the past, Bran walked into young Willis, reached through his mind such that his present self would hold the door to save Bran and Mira from Whites. This is so tragic and fucked up on so many levels. Willis was a happy, healthy kid who had his mind and his whole life taken away from him. Every word he said for the rest of his life was a premonition of his death, yet everyone around him just thought it was funny. And did he have a choice in this? Did he know all his life the way he'd die and bravely continued on anyway? Or is he a handicapped man being taken advantage of, used for reasons he didn't understand? To make things worse, since Hodor was killed by Whites, he'll probably be raised as a zombie himself, forced to serve even after his death. And this is all Bran's fault. He messed up having that vision on his own, and as a result, most of his friends are dead and he destroyed the life of an innocent man, past, present, and future. Bran's learning the hard way that with great power comes great responsibility. He's gonna have a lot of guilt to deal with. And a lot of people are asking about the whole time travel thing, and it looks like this isn't like Back to the Future, where Marty creates alternate future timelines by changing the past. Bran didn't change anything, he just caused a past event which had already happened in his timeline. Hodor already was Hodor, Bran just went back and made it happen. It is time travel, but it's a closed loop, yeah? It's all in one timeline. Like Bloodraven says, the past is written, the ink is dry, so it's not like Bran can, go back to the past and stop the Walkers from ever being made, or stop Ned from ever dying. The past is written. What Bran and Mira really need to worry about now is the future. Because where are they going to go? What are they going to do? They're stuck in the middle of nowhere, the Whites and Walkers are right behind them, they've got no Hodor to carry Bran, no Summer to protect them, no Bloodraven to guide them. They're going to need to be rescued, and their savior will probably be this mysterious figure from the trailer who might be Jon's long-lost uncle Benjen, who's been missing beyond the wall for like 5 seasons. It could also be Cold Hands, a mysterious friendly zombie from the books, or maybe even some combination of the two. We'll see what happens. Whoever rescues them, Bran and Mira will probably head for the wall, but if they do, will the Night King's mark on Bran be a problem? The wall and Bloodraven's cave both seem to be protected by the same kind of magic, the magic of the Children of the Forest. What if the moment Bran steps through the wall, the whole thing comes crashing down and the Walkers walk right through? Poor Ed can't catch a break. So that was a hell of an episode. We're now halfway through the season, and with war in the north, Arya against the Faceless Men, Red Priests in Marine, pirates sailing east, and every possible fucking crazy thing happening north of the Wall, not to mention King's Landing and Old Town and Dawn, it's only gonna get more intense. So thank you for watching. These videos do take a lot of work to make, so if you'd like to support the channel and get behind the scenes updates, stuff like that, please pledge on Patreon. There's a link below. There's also a link to art by Ertach Altanos, that's his depiction of Euron there. But yeah, thank you to all patrons supporting this channel, including Sin Bobby Joe, Brandon L. Staggs, Box Brown, Lauren Sinclair, Quaker MC, and Soxy Ando. Cheers.